Hello YouTubers, this is Mopar Man 1978 out here on a windy day. Sorry for the background noise. Want to talk to you about the subjects that are coming up about doing projects on a tight budget, talking about welders, whatnot. I'm super low budget because I don't have a lot of money to throw around. And people making comments about Harbor Freight products, whatnot. I mean, yeah, there's some stuff at Harbor Freight that's not really worth it. Other stuff that is, even though it's sold at Harbor Freight, it's still good stuff. Take for example this 110 Flux core MIG welder I bought off a buddy of mine for $100. Came with the welding helmet, and he hardly used it. He bought a different welder. I needed one real bad, so like I said, it's 110, plugs into the wall outlet. I will let you know that if you have it on max here and you have appliances, a lot of appliances running on the same circuit in the house or off the house, you will flip the circuit breaker. But if you're doing a minimum, it doesn't really do that much unless you're running a lot of power accessories like fans and air conditioners and stuff. Sometimes we shut, since we don't have the power grid set up out here yet for the shop, I have to run a heavy duty extension cord to this, and we have to shut off some of the fans and stuff in the house that at that time we're not using, so it doesn't cause a draw. So like if I'm welding up exhaust pipe or something like that, I'll set it to max or thick metal. Anyway, when you buy this, it comes with a really cheap quality ground clamp. I went to Menards and bought this really heavy duty, really strong ground clamp and just put it on myself. Went around here, made sure any little moving parts where they had bearings or anything was oiled, because sometimes they don't do that from the factory. During the summertime, I leave one of the panels off to get maximum flow. If it's I got it set on max so it don't get too hot. If it gets too hot, it shuts off until it cools down. The other thing I do is I go to Menards and I buy their Flux core MIG wire, because right here, made in the USA. The stuff from Harbor Freight's made overseas, I think in Italy or something, I don't know. Anyway, if you buy like 3 or more of these, instead of like $17 and something a spool, they knock it down to $16, so you're getting a little bit of a discount. So I buy 2 or 3, 4 rolls at a time, especially since I'm going to be doing the patch panels in the floor of the dart. Also, when you got a welder, this stuff works really good. You can get it at the welding shops or O'Reilly's in their automotive section. It's called Tip Dip, and you just put your welding tip in there just enough. It coats the tip and around the sleeve that goes on the outside of the tip, and helps splatter and build up to stay off the tip. And every once in a while you still have to clean it, but at least it's not sticking and melting to it and whatnot. Anyway, always make sure you have a really good ground on any welder when it comes to clamping it on something on the vehicle or the project you're working on. I use this from Harbor Freight. This is okay, it's a cutoff wheel, but if you use it at an angle like this and go back and forth, you can actually grind it down to the spot that you're going to be welding on down the bare metal. But I recommend something with heavy duty grit, like an actual disc grinder like we used in Autobody class, like 24 grit. I actually get in there and really grind off the metal until you get down to a shiny, bare, rough surface. You want it as clean as possible when you grind it, to get all the nastiness off the surface. Then once in a while you also want to make sure that inside here on your clamp, the part that touches the metal that you're going to ground it to is also clean too, because that can over time build up a layer of crud. Always make sure you got steel bristle brush. You can even use the little hobby bristle brushes too to get in to tight spots. On the Flux core, it puts off a lot of what I call powdery soot during the welding process. If you stop, scrub the area up real good, and then keep welding, it helps it out quite a bit. Also, when you're welding, try to use both hands. You don't necessarily want the welder to be up like this or down at this. You want it at a slight angle. And then what you want to do is you want to take your time and go back and forth, and you don't want to push the weld. You want to draw away from it, or you can do a circular pattern, but as you're pulling away from it and welding up a seam, you can do that. One thing they taught us in Autobody class when I went to a technical school, this is just an example, what they would have us do to get used to learning how to do pinch welds. This is just a steel ruler and a sawzall blade, but what we would do is we'd have strips of metal, sheet metal. This strip here would have, every so many inches, would have a hole drilled in it or punched into it from a Autobody punch tool. And then you'd have a solid piece on the back, and what you would do is you would take a vice grip with a C clamp on the end of it, clamp this end, and then you would take your ground, connect it onto this end, and then you would try to weld and do a pinch weld, fill that hole that you cut out or punched out, and try to get it as flat and as smooth as possible. And then along the way you would have to improve your technique on how you're holding the welding tip and adjusting your wire feed and your heat range. But that's something we also did too, to practice along the way. Now, for example, if you're going to try to what they call do a butt weld, where you got two pieces of this metal coming up against one another, it's fine if the metal's thin. You can weld straight down it. But if they're real thick or starting to get thick, you want to come in here at an angle with your grinder and grind this down to where you have, when you look at the side of the metal, it's got kind of a V shape to it. So when you put it up there, there's a V-shaped path all the way up the length of this. And then when you do that, another thing I would do too, when you're welding thick pieces instead of thin pieces, you can use a propane held heating torch or a MAP gas torch. Heat the area up real nice and hot, and that will help doing your welding with the thick metal pieces together. That'll help expand the heat for a deep, and then like I said, make sure you grind it really good, and that'll help penetrate the weld a lot better. When I'm doing pinch welds, like since I'm going to be welding patch panels to the framework underneath the floor on the dart, when I prep the surfaces and get ready to weld, I use this stuff right here. I think it's like $35 or something like that at O'Reilly's. You probably find it maybe cheaper online, I don't know. It's got zinc in it, corrosion resistant zinc weld through primer. A little bit goes a long way. You just spray it along the spots and over the spots you're going to weld. Between where the two panels are going to be welded up. That's what I did on the passenger side front floorboard already. I already prepped all that and welded it all up and used this stuff. Also, I don't really like endorsing Walmart that much, but anyway, this is where you can get the cheapest prices on this stuff. I always use Rust-Oleum products because Rust-Oleum, all their products have an anti-rust treatment in their paints and primers and whatnot. When I'm done welding the floor up and I still have bare metal or whatnot, or spots that could rust up, I use Rust-Oleum Self-Etching Primer. I let it dry for real long, for like 2 or 3 days, especially if it's during the summertime. Let it dry. You want to make sure all the chemicals are gone. You don't want to weld on this stuff either, but I use that. When I'm done with that, it gets this primer sealer over it. I also use Rust-Oleum paints as well. This stuff right here, if you got something that doesn't need to be painted, you just want to keep it from rusting, this is the converter. Or if you got something that's rusty, it'll convert the rust to a sandable primer that you can paint over or whatnot. This stuff's really good too. Then I know this one doesn't say the professional grade, but the rest, all this stuff's in the automotive section at Walmart. This is the Rust-Oleum Undercoating. Now this is just the regular rubber, black rubber undercoating. It says resist rust. I usually use the professional grade stuff because they got this two exact same looking cans, but one says professional grade, this one just is regular. And that's what I did to underneath the all the panels and stuff that I welded so far on the underside of the dart, on the floors. All the frame and the new panel patches got all this coated in this stuff. So yeah, it's super low budget. Let's see what else. But yeah, that's pretty much what I use to do my stuff with. You don't have to have a big fancy name welder. I mean, it's great, yeah. Everybody'd like to own a Lincoln or a Miller or Hobart or whatever welder. Not everybody has the money. And so far, all the welding I've done here at the house and on the vehicles, I've had no issues. I even fabricated out of thin angle plating a battery tray for my dad in his '78 Chevy pickup. It's not going to be going anywhere. It's welded in. The frame, the seams are all welded up. It's heavy duty. It's going to take a long time for that to rot out. But yeah, and once I get the slant 6 back in the dart, and I got to put the exhaust pipe back in, and this is what I'm going to be using the welder and the grinders and all that stuff to put the exhaust pipe back in myself. But and then, you know, just also safety tip, if you're not supposed to be welding on it with anything that's got zinc or a galvanized coating. If you're going to do it outside or in a area that's ventilated, and it's the fumes and the smoke is being pushed away from you and that nobody's breathing it in. And if you're in a spot where that's not going to be able to be possible, you're inside of a tight area, make sure you use a respirator for chemicals, or an air supplied respirator. You don't want to die or mess up your lungs or vice versa. I try not to weld on any of that stuff unless I absolutely have to, and if I do it, it's out here. Of course, I don't have a shop to weld in, so everything's out here. And if it's on a calm day with hardly any breeze, I get a box fan, and I have a box fan blowing on me to keep the fumes and stuff away from me. Make sure you're welding with a welding mask on. You don't want to burn stuff on the back of your eyeballs. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, any other Autobody stuff, since I took a 3-year course and got certified in auto collision repair and MIG welding and sheet metal fabrication work, custom paint jobs, let me know. I'll try to do my best, and if I can't come up with an answer on that, I got a lot of people that do way more stuff than I do that could probably help you out on that. But anyway, have a good day.